Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at a big stack of sources here.
You really are.
And we're digging into something that these articles, reviews, interviews, well, they suggest it's potentially reshaping music right now. It's called beatsarerapon.com.
That's right. We've got material from music insiders, artists themselves, big names like Billboard, Rolling Stone, the New York Times, Complex, XXL, you name it. And our goal today really is to pull out the core insights. What is this platform? Why is it getting so much attention all of a sudden? And, what does it mean for creators and the industry as a whole?
Yeah, because the sources definitely paint this picture. It starts as one thing, royalty-free rap beats, but it seems to have morphed into something much, much bigger.
Exactly.
But what makes it tick? What's the big deal? Let's unpack it.
Okay, so fundamentally, the sources define beatsarerapon.com as an online platform, a marketplace.
Right.
It started heavy on rap, hip-hop, trap instrumentals, sure, but the sources say the catalog now is huge. It covers R&B, Afro beats, reggae, lots more.
And the core thing, the element that people like DJ Trapson, Smith Alung, Marcus and Pease, Figaro keep highlighting in these articles, it's this royalty-free idea.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in practice for, say, an artist using the site?
Well, essentially, the sources explain it like this. You find a beat you like, you use it, make your track, upload it everywhere, make money from it, and you don't have to go through that whole complicated, often really expensive process of clearing samples, negotiating licenses, or, worrying about copyright claims popping up later.
So it cuts out a lot of the traditional friction.
A lot. The sources definitely stress that it's a big shift from how things usually work or used to work.
And the scale. That seems to be another major point.
Yeah.
Marcus and Pease Figueroa apparently calls it the most reliable source. What do the articles say about the library itself?
They describe it as massive and critically constantly updated. So it's not static. It's got everything from old school boom bap to the latest Afrobeat sounds, just sheer variety.
And accessible too, right? That comes up a lot.
Yeah, that's key. It's free. It's global. Anyone can get on it. One source actually used the phrase total access, no barriers.
Doesn't matter if you're unknown or a superstar.
Exactly. Same library for everyone.
Okay, so massive, free, royalty-free beat library. That makes sense as a foundation. But the sources seem to argue it's become more than just a utility. They say it's blowing up because it's evolved. Into what?
This is where it gets really interesting. The sources stop just calling it a platform and start using words like ecosystem or even a universe of creators.
An ecosystem.
Yeah, the idea being it's not just about the beats anymore. It's about bringing together everyone involved in making music happen. Artists, rappers, DJs, producers, sound engineers, A&R people, bloggers, influencers, even sync agents. One source mentions Web3 heads being part of it, too. It's this convergence point. The Beat Store Upon, a new music ecosystem article, really digs into that.
Web3 heads is interesting. What do the sources suggest draws that group in alongside, rappers and producers?
Well, the sources don't spell out the exact connection in massive detail, but including them on that list implies the platform is seen as a hub for maybe more future-facing, digitally focused music communities.
Okay.
Maybe people exploring new ways of doing things, new models around music online, which kind of fits the whole vibe of the platform shaking things up.
Right. So it's this big mix of roles and the scale of this ecosystem. What numbers are we talking about?
Multiple sources mention 400,000 creators.
Wow. 400,000?
Yeah. The Beat Store Upon, music creator platform of the future piece, calls it a super collider of talent. Just imagine that density of different skills and perspectives all in one place.
That must naturally lead to collaborations, right?
Yeah.
Do the sources talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. It's described explicitly as being built for collaboration. The sources really emphasize how it breaks down old barriers, geography, genre, traditional industry roles.
Like connecting people who'd never normally meet.
Precisely. There's a quote from Jada Vibes about connecting with artists all over the world. That seems to be a common experience highlighted in the reports.
So it feels less like just downloading a file and more like joining something. The sources talk about culture, not just music.
Exactly. That music creator platform of the future source frames it as a network that's actively, shaping culture. The analogies they use are pretty strong, like a living, breathing music city, or taking the energy of Atlanta, Kingston, Lagos, London, LA, and cramming it into a Discord server on overdrive.
That's quite an image. How are all these people finding this place, though? Is it just word of mouth, or is there something else driving the growth?
Well, several sources, including that Platform of the Future one and Marcus M. Keys again, point very clearly to search engines, SEO.
Ah, okay.
The platform is apparently really well optimized for searches like free rap beats, trap beats for artists, that kind of thing. So people actively looking for these tools find it easily, which pulls in a constant stream of new users.
And does it work? Are there actual results coming out of this platform that the sources point to?
Yeah, they definitely talk about real results. Tracks using these beats are apparently going viral, getting onto big Spotify or Apple Music playlists. Some are even getting picked up for, used in TV shows or movies.
Right.
And that success then feeds back into the hype, drawing more people in. It becomes a cycle.
Okay, this is where my eyebrows really went up reading these sources. The names, it's not just underground artists anymore.
Uh-huh.
Major players are being mentioned.
Exactly. It's pretty wild. Billboard quotes Kendrick Lamar directly, calls it where new classics are born, his go-to for creative sessions. He even says it's where you hear what the future sounds like.
Kendrick Lamar, wow.
And Metro Boomin, also in Billboard, calls it digital crate digging, but on steroids.
Then you got Ice Spice. Complex and Billboard say she used a beat from the site for her latest single, found shit nobody else has heard yet, apparently.
Right. And Doja Cat, talking to the Fader in Rolling Stone, says she finds her weirdest heat there, uses it to push herself creatively.
Stormzy, too, praising the global reach in NME and Rolling Stone, hearing Logos, Atlanta, London in one place, calling it a revolution.
And remember that Drake story? Hot New Hip Hop reported he dropped a surprise EP, and all the beats were from the site. He even shouted out the unknown producers.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Zane Lowe at Apple Music One calls it an earthquake for music discovery. SCA tells Vibe it's her secret sauce for finding left-field R&B.
J. Cole uses it to stay connected to the streets, according to the source in Billboard, looking for that hunger, the rawness.
Yeah.
Beat reported Megan Thee Stallion is actively using it to find and collaborate with up-and-coming female producers for a mixtape.
And Ty Dolly, quoted in Complex, calls it a launch pad. Said he used a beat for a single from some kid in Poland he found on there.
It's an incredible list.
It really is.
Yeah.
So what's the connection? Why are these massive artists, who presumably have access to anything, turning to a free, royalty-free platform? What do the sources suggest is the draw?
Well, the consensus across the sources seems to be a few things. One is finding truly raw, undiscovered talent, finding unique sounds. They talk about loops and textures that just don't exist anywhere else.
Stuff that hasn't been filtered yet.
Exactly. Another angle is authenticity, staying connected to the underground, the streets, like J. Cole said, keeping an ear to the ground. And maybe the biggest practical thing, bypassing the old system.
The gatekeepers.
Yeah. The sources really stress this. No waiting for sample clearance, no complicated deals. One article puts it bluntly, no 10 lawyers to clear sample, no middlemen. It's faster, more direct.
And that disruption seems to be hitting the A&R world, too.
Oh, definitely. Rolling Stone, XXL, Music Business Worldwide, they all mention major label A&R scouts are all over this site. Yeah, like lurking, quietly watching, using it as a gold mine, a new A&R pipeline. They're looking for the next big artist, but also maybe the next viral sound before it blows up everywhere else.
And you mentioned sync licensing before. That's picking up steam, too.
Seems like it. Variety and Marcus N. Keys say sync agents, the people placing music in TV and film, are increasingly starting their searches on BeatStar.
Why there?
Probably because of the sheer volume and diversity of sound. They think it's a good place to find something fresh, maybe the soundtrack for the next Euphoria, as one source put it.
And then social media just pours gasoline on the fire.
Right. Complex noted the hashtag BeatStoreUpon hashtag trending on TikTok. Artists use the beats, fans make videos. It just amplifies everything, creates its own buzz.
So stepping back from the specific examples, the sources, especially the editorials in places like Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, XXL, they frame this as something bigger than just a website doing well.
Much bigger. They use phrases like breaking down the last barriers, changing the rules of the game. They call it a movement. And they see it as a kind of proof of concept for a future where maybe the quality of the idea, the song itself, matters more than, who you know or how much money you have behind you.
Which is a direct challenge to how the music industry has traditionally worked.
Absolutely. The sources are pretty blunt. They talk about bypassing the gatekeepers, the need for expensive studios, the nightmare of licensing. One source flat out says the music industry has never really been fair and suggests platforms like this offer a chance at leveling that playing field, at least in terms of access.
That new music ecosystem source even called it a new cultural operating system. What do they mean by that?
They described it as alive, unscripted, impossible to fake. The idea seems to be that it's not just a tool for the music scene, it is the scene or a major part of it now. It's dynamic, driven by what the creators are actually doing second by second.
Okay, but this kind of rapid disruptive change,
Yeah.
it can't all be smooth sailing. There must be pushback, or at least some tricky questions being raised. What contradictions or tensions do the sources bring up?
Yeah, and this is where it gets really meaty. Sources like royalty-free, the new hip-hop revolution, and the free beat revolution definitely explore the complexity.
Like the whole access versus originality thing.
Exactly. It's amazing that millions of people can now make music easily. But the flip side question the sources pose is, does that flood of content lead to a kind of sonic sameness? A million sound-alikes.
And speed versus craft.
Right. If you can make a track super fast, is something lost in the process? Does the artistry suffer? One source uses the phrase fast food microwaved music.
No.
Yeah. Then there's the global versus local tension. Is connecting a producer in Nigeria with a rapper in New York always a good thing? Or does it sometimes lead to what one article called cultural smudging, where unique local flavors get diluted?
That's a tough one. And the value proposition, the democratization paradox.
Yeah, the idea that if the tools, the beats, are free, does that make the final product, the song, feel less valuable? Does free start to equate to cheap in people's minds? Does it devalue the art form itself?
These aren't entirely new debates in music, though, are they?
No, and the sources acknowledge that. Hip-hop started with sampling practices that weren't exactly legal at first. Reggae had sound systems and dub plates. Pirate radio existed.
Music has always found ways around the rules.
Exactly. It's often been a hack, a workaround, a hustle, as the sources put it. The difference now, they argue, is the sheer scale and the instant speed that platforms like this enable. It's that old hustle, but amplified massively.
But even with free beats, the sources seem clear. It's not an easy ride.
Yeah.
The hustle, still real.
Definitely. They stress that having access to beats is one thing, but cutting through the noise of potentially 400,000 other creators, that still takes immense grind, a unique voice, a strong point of view.
Talent isn't enough on its own.
Apparently not. The sources suggest talent can easily get drowned out by sheer volume and persistence if you don't have that unique angle or the drive to push it.
What about the producers providing the beats? If they're free, how do they make a living? Do the sources touch on that?
They hint at it. It seems making substantial money just by uploading free beats might be difficult. The suggestion is that producers using the platform successfully probably need to be creative.
Like using it as a stepping stone?
Maybe. Or offering other services, building a brand, using the platform for exposure to get paid work elsewhere. It's likely not just about the free downloads themselves for the producers who are really thriving.
And what about that cosign myth? The idea that every major artist is constantly digging through the site. How do the sources frame that?
They kind of position it as maybe not literally every star's on there 24/7, but the smart ones, the ones who want to stay relevant, understand they need to know what's bubbling up from the underground.
Keeping their ear to the digital street.
Exactly. They're on the hunt, as one source says, for that raw energy, that next sound. And this platform is a major place where that hunt is happening. So the legend and the reality are intertwined.
Okay, so let's try and tie this all together. After digging through all these sources on beatstoreupon.com, what does it mean for you, the listener?
Well, if you're involved in making music in any way, artist, producer, songwriter, whatever the overwhelming message from the sources is, this platform offers huge access. Access to sounds, access to collaborators worldwide, potentially access to an audience.
And a way to bypass some old hurdles.
Right. A way to potentially get your music out there, get discovered, maybe even build a career without needing the traditional industry machine behind you. Sources like From Bedroom to Billboard definitely highlight that potential path.
If you're just someone who loves music, loves finding new stuff.
Then the sources suggest this is a really important place to pay attention to. It's where a lot of the raw ingredients of future hits are being cooked up daily.
You might hear something on the radio tomorrow that started as a free beat on this site yesterday.
Quite possibly. It's presented as a breeding ground for the next wave, where ideas catch fire fast.
And it really makes you think, doesn't it, about the bigger picture.
It absolutely does. What does a platform like this, where key creative components are just freely available on a massive scale, tell us about where music is heading? The future of creativity, who owns what, the whole structure of the industry.
Is it really leveling the playing field? Or just creating a different kind of field with new challenges?
That seems to be the big open question running through a lot of the sources.
So we've really dug deep into beatstirropon.com today, looking at everything the sources say, from its royalty-free roots to this huge creator ecosystem and its clear impact on the charts and big artists.
So yeah, the sources lay out both this incredible opportunity and some really fascinating contradictions,
Mm.
about originality, value, culture. It's definitely a space where the old ways are being challenged, maybe even broken, by just the sheer force of creative energy.
The picture painted by these writers, these artists, these insiders, it's one of a real cultural shift happening right now, driven by access and connection.
And maybe that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In a world where the building blocks, like the beats, become almost infinitely accessible, maybe even free, does the core value of a song fundamentally shift?
Meaning,
Meaning, does it become less about the beat itself, since anyone could potentially use it, and even more about the artist's unique voice, their story, their delivery, the personality they bring on top of that beat? If the foundation is free, what is the artist truly selling you?
that's something to think about.
Hmm.
Definitely something to mull over next time you hear a new track that grabs you.